You're the most qualified person in the room, but they've hired someone half your age. Does that sound familiar? If you're over 40 and tired of being invisible, struggling in today's competitive job market to stand out, today we're going to be looking at Abigail, who went from crisis manager to queen, and her 3-step strategy that will change how employers see you. See, you've put out dozens of applications. You've even had some interviews. They can't see past your age to see your value. So what should you do about it? My name is Diane, and this is our faith-driven career strategies and coaching. And so there was a woman in the Bible named Abigail. She was underestimated, surrounded by people who couldn't really see her strategic brilliance. Now, we're going to start out with 1 Samuel chapter 25. I want to set the stage so that you can understand the context of what the situation that Abigail was in and how she used that situation to change the entire narrative. So let's look at Abigail and the outcomes that she had. Let's read first Samuel chapter 25. I'm going to start out with verses 2 and 3. I'm going to read from the New King James Version. And it says, "Now there was a man in Maon whose business it was in Carmel, and he was a man who was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb." Let's go down to verse number 9. And what happened, David was his men, they were all working in the fields, and David had sent his men to ask Nabal for some food. So I want to make sure that you understand the context. Now, not necessarily a total Bible study, but in order for us to merge these two together, our strategies, our biblical faith-driven strategies, in order for us to merge them together, we really have to understand the context of what was going on, because many times we separate our church life or our Bible life from our careers, but really we should be putting the two together just to make sure that we're doing those things that God has in the way that God has shown us. He can show us in the Bible what the strategies that these women used. So in verse number 9, David has sent his men to talk to Nabal. It says, "So when David's young men came and spoke with Nabal according to all these words in the name of David and waited, then Nabal answered David's servants and said, 'Who is David and who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away from each one of his masters. Shall I take of my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men when I do not know where they are from?' So David's young men turned on their heels and went back and came and told him all these things." So they went back and told David. So David was furious. He told all his men to, get your swords. We're going to go and wipe them out. So let's look at the strategies that Abigail used to overcome this situation and circumstance. So stay with me, because I really want to show you 3 strategies Abigail used to change the outcome of a very negative situation, and how these strategies will help you get the successful results you are looking for in your job search. So we're going to start out with strategy number 1. Strategy number 1, she strategically positioned herself. Don't wait to be discovered. Position yourself where decision makers can't miss you. Now, this is easier said than done. So how did she do it? So let's look at how she did it. See, you can't just wait to be discovered. And when you're over 40 and you have put out these applications and you're just getting crickets and there's nothing happening, we have to do something different in order to get that different result. So this particular strategy I'm going to tell you about is going to show you how to do what I just mentioned about strategically positioning yourself in front of the decision makers. Now she didn't wait for her foolish husband to fix the mistake with David. She didn't hope that someone would notice her wisdom. She strategically positioned herself directly in David's path with a solution, and that is the key. Let's look at 1 Samuel chapter 25 verses 18 and 19 to see what she did. Verses 18, "Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 sheaves of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on the donkey. And she said to her servants, Go on before me. See, I am coming after you. But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. So what was her strategy here? She knew, and in verse 14, how she found out was one of her servants had came and told her. In verse 14 it says, But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute your master, and he railed them. So he was rude to them. He was like, no, we're not doing that. We're not sending you any food. So David was on his way to destroy their entire community. And so she did what she needed to do without even telling her husband. But the key point is that she positioned herself in front of the decision maker. She positioned herself in front of David. So, positioning yourself in front of the decision maker or in the path of the decision maker is really easier said than done. It can be difficult when you don't have a plan. So here's what you need to do. Let me just share with you what you need to do in that situation. So here's the plan. Stop applying through online portals where you're just a resume in a pile. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to stop doing that, because you're just going to be in that stack and you've already been there. You've already applied. You've even gotten interviews, but you've gotten nowhere from that. The next thing is to identify decision makers or the hiring manager on LinkedIn or wherever you are applying. Wherever you're applying, you want to identify who that decision maker is. And you want to create a strategic introduction that showcases your problem solving ability up front. And that is key. That is key in the situation. That's what Abigail was doing. She was problem solving, because she knew after her servants told her what her husband had done to David that it was going to be a problem. He was going to destroy their entire community, as I mentioned before. So now the steps to implementing this plan can be very simple. So I'm going to give you the steps of how to do this. I'm telling you what to do. I'm sharing with you what to do, but you have to have a plan, in other words, to execute this plan. So this is what you're going to do this week. You are going to identify 3 companies that you want to work for. So find the hiring manager or the department head on LinkedIn or wherever the company website is where you're seeking your employment. Not HR, but you need to know who the decision maker is. And you can actually call and find that information out if it's not available on the website. Then you're going to send a brief message, not asking for a job, but just offer a specific insight about challenges that their industry might be facing and how your expertise can help solve that. Now, Abigail, she didn't wait for permission from her husband. She took action. She just took action. So now you're in front of the hiring manager face to face. So what do? What do you say? Abigail's strategy gained her favor with David, and here's what she did. She led with value first communication. She led with solutions, not her credentials. Now, I want you to think about this really closely when you're leading with solutions instead of your credentials. Abigail approached David. She didn't lead with her credentials or apologize for her age or situation. She led with value, bringing resources, offering wisdom, and presenting a solution, which was a prophetic word from the Lord, if you go ahead and read that chapter, that served David's higher purpose. So the next question then is, how would you bring value into your interview? How can you demonstrate value to that particular company when you're stepping in front, once you're in front of the manager? Because you have to be able to demonstrate your value. And what a mistake that a lot of women make is that they lead their interviews just like their resumes with 20 plus years of experience. Well, that will trigger that age bias even before you get started, because it just says old. Instead, you want to lead with a specific problem that you've solved or a specific expertise that you have. Now, there is a framework that's necessary to figure out what to say during this live interview. And the framework is this. you're going to research the company's current challenges, and you should be able to find that information out. Open with, I noticed da 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 in my career I've solved this exact problem, and then you're going to give some brief results. You don't want to go on and be talking about yourself. You want to focus in on that employer's issue because you're bringing value. Now, here's how I'd approach it for you, and this is what you're going to say, this is what I would do in this situation, because they're interested in problem solving and the issues that they have at their company. So now your age becomes invisible, and now you, instead of looking at your age, they're looking at the value that you're bringing. You have to bring value with you into these interviews, and this is going to be a challenge, because this is something that we're not used to doing. And that's why it's so important for me to be able to share with you in your coaching sessions and things like that. How do I do that? Because it's unique to you. What is that you're looking to do? And I try to share to make sure that you've identified that. So now we're going to work forward going in that direction to answer some of these questions. What I'm giving you through the Bible and the faith-driven strategies is just a general overall strategy that you can try on your own. But if you really want clarity and work it out, we can set up a time. You can, schedule a 30-minute discovery call with me just to find out where you are and where you want to go. So this framework, I believe it would work if you make sure that you've practiced it first. So how do you set up this framework without wasting your hours and rewriting your whole resume? Who wants to do that? Remember, I had mentioned about not listing your 20 years of experience. So what you're going to do is rewrite your LinkedIn headline or your summary. You're going to remove the years of experience and replace it with a specific problem. It's not going to be long, just something similar. For example, instead of 25 years in project management, you want to say, I help tech companies cut project delivery time by 30% while reducing costs. So these are the only things that you can speak to. You can only speak to the things that you have done. And believe me, you have experience. You have the authority that you need to do that. So let's go over to 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 28. So now Abigail, she spoke with authority. She spoke with impact, not tenure. And she was actually speaking prophetically when you go through and read it. But the thing is, if she had not done it, the result could have been catastrophic. Her whole community would have been wiped out, including her. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant. For the Lord will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. So she was speaking a word to David and giving him wisdom. However, this third strategy is one that we all need to adopt when we're changing jobs and going forward every single time. And what did she do, and what should you do? Well, let me share this before we go on to that third strategy. Because of my own personal experience in these challenges throughout my career and helping others, I have the passion to see you succeed as you pivot from one career to another. Rejection is just swallows us up and destroys us. And I like to help you identify your potential, your passion, and your purpose, and also to move it from paper to productivity. My story is not your story. We might have similar things that going on in our lives, but my story is not your story. And that's what differentiates what I like to do here in this channel, is to help you through scripture and through faith-driven strategies to move forward. Because we can't continue to just struggle in today's job market. If you do these strategies, you shouldn't have to struggle, and with them you won't struggle. Let's look at what's the third strategy that she used. She positioned herself first and foremost. She led with value. So what did she do? What was that third strategy? She spoke with decisive authority. She owned her expertise without apologizing. Now, Abigail, she didn't hedge. She didn't say maybe. She didn't say I think. She spoke with authority from her experience. She knew the stakes. She made a decision, and she executed it flawlessly. Her confidence came from her competence. Now let's see what happens in 1 Samuel chapter 25 verses 32 and 33. 1 Samuel, and then I'm reading, like I said, in the New King James Version, chapter 25 verses 32 and 33. It says, Then David said to Abigail, Blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed, from the avenging of myself with my own hand. Many women over 40, they have learned to soften their expertise. Well, I'm not sure, but, and this undermines your authority. You cannot do this anymore. Your years of experience have earned you the right to speak decisively. They have earned you the right. Listen to me here, and I want you to think about it. You have earned the right to speak decisively. But using the right language to take advantage of your expertise can really be confusing if you really don't know what to say. So I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts so that it'll make it easy for you, and something that you can do this week to overcome that. Because many times we are intimidated by being in front of an interview. Once we get in front of that interview, it just seems like everything can just go awry. So let's look at some do's and don'ts when it comes to speaking with authority. So the first thing, you don't want to be vague by saying things like, I think I could probably help with. You have to use decisive authority language that says, here's exactly how I would solve that problem. And you don't have to be ashamed, because you have the expertise. You have the expertise. Whether it's even in that same field or not, there's something that goes across the lines. It goes across the board. Leadership goes across the lines. If you've done it for this in that situation, you can do it for another company in a different situation, because you're going to use the same framework. Another problem statement is, I have some experience in. So you don't really want to say that, because it kind of weakens your authority. So you want to use decisive language that says, I've successfully led teams through this transition 3 times. The framework I used is such and such, and it will work every time. Now, these are some do's and don'ts, but you have to realize it's just not going to pop off the top of your head. You have to practice, and you have to write these things down, because nerves are going to get in the way. So what do we do in our next situation? You're going to record yourself, and you're going to practice the interview answers. So count how many times when you do this. You're going to count how many times you used your soft language, like kind of, sort of, maybe, I think, probably, and write out a short answer, then re-record it in a decisive language. Like, here's how I would solve that, or I've successfully led teams. Now, what I want to share with you, though, you may not know what are the interview questions. Well, I have a private link that I'm going to put in this video, and it says it's from a video, or just a short lesson on want your resume to stand out. Do this. That's the title of it. And it walks you through updating your resume process, but it also gives you the steps on how to create practice interview questions and where to get them from the job that you are looking for. So you want to make sure that you are fully prepared for this next interview. You don't want to just go in there willy-nilly. This is the whole process. This is what Abigail did. She went in, she had value, she put herself in front of the decision maker. And maybe you have done that. Maybe you've gotten in front of there. But did you lead with value? Or did you lead with my experience? You got to think about how your strategy, you have to change that strategy, but you have to practice that strategy. It's just not going to fly off the top of your head. And you want to have that decisive language. You've earned the right to have authority over what you're telling the interviewer, because when you give them that, as I mentioned before, they're not going to necessarily look at your age. They're going to look at what you're bringing to the company and what you're bringing to the table, and it just kind of sets that ageism or that age bias off to the side. So I really want you to work at trying that this week. So now in the end, David praised Abigail's decisive judgment. And using decisive language will transform your interview results, because here's what happened to Abigail. David didn't just respect her, he pursued her. When Nabal died, David sent messengers specifically asking Abigail to become his wife. She went from being invisible in her own household to being pursued by the king. And your experience is not your liability. It's your kingdom credentials, but you have to position yourself strategically, you have to communicate powerfully, and you have to own it decisively. We have to come in there with confidence. So if you're ready to stop being invisible and struggling to stand out in today's competitive job market and land that job you're really truly excited about, I have 2 ways I can help you. First and foremost, you want to schedule a free 30-minute discovery call with me so that we can find out where you are, exactly where you are or where you're stuck, and create a custom strategy that will move you from being stuck into stepping into the things and the dreams that you have and the goals for this season in your life. I was talking with a friend today, and I'm so excited because she's shifting from one season into the next season, and God just opened doors for her. And she had positioned herself in front of the individuals that she's working with now over 5 years ago. And she did not know that 5 years from now, there was going to be an opportunity for her to come on board with them as a volunteer, but be able to travel with them, all expenses paid. So we cannot take lightly the relationships and positioning ourselves and building those situations and circumstances, but you have to know where you are. You have to know where you are, and you have to have a plan. I have a plan, and I'm working my plan, and you have to have a plan, because at our age, we just cannot just let things just drift. We just can't let them drift. We want to pursue our life dreams. We want to pursue those things that God has given us even when we were younger. And the second thing, if you want ongoing support or accountability, I have a limited to 8, but it's called the Next Chapter Mastermind. So you can sign up for that. The link is in the description as well. And if you need some scripture support and just to help continue you walk through what you are at this season with some declarations, some prayers, I have created a career transitions prayer and promises devotional, and it also has place in there for your journaling. So you can get a free sample by clicking on the link if you would like to take a look at that, or you can purchase that in the link as well. Now remember, Abigail, she didn't wait to be discovered. She positioned herself strategically, and that changed everything. Now, if you have career gaps that might be holding you back and you're feeling disqualified before you get started, check this video out and find out how to bridge those gaps. And I'll see you in the next video, and you have a great one.